Hi, my name is Adam Walls, and I'm an award-winning makeup artist. You may have seen my work in Zombieland Double Tap. Are you curious about how to throw together an out-of-kit corpse makeup? Well, stick around today on Off the Walls Effects, and we're going to figure it out. Alright, so today we're going to be tackling an out-of-kit corpse makeup. Now you might be wondering, what is out-of-kit? What does that mean exactly? Well, basically a makeup that you do out of kit is any makeup that you can do with your kit, using only the materials that you find in your kit. Now this little makeup tutorial today, the nice thing about it is it doesn't include any prosthetics. There will be no prosthetics used in this makeup at all. So we are going to be creating some texture on the skin. So I'm going to use a couple specific materials today to show you how you can kind of get a torn skin look without using any sort of prosthetics. Now, of course, with any makeup that I like to do, I did start out with the design, so we're going to jump into Procreate. We're going to design this look so I know exactly where I want things to go on the skin and how I want it to look. I'm going to work out my colors there. And then we're going to go ahead and use those materials, prep all that stuff, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply it all so you can kind of see what you can do from your kit. And of course it is Halloween this week, so I figured no better way to kick off the Halloween week with a makeup like this. So go ahead and sit back, relax, and then we're going to get into this. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Procreate and we're going to drop a picture in. Of course, here's my mug, and essentially what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm creating that marbling that you usually get. I'm going in with a purple and a blue, and that's usually that under marbling I like to do whenever you're doing a dead makeup like this. Of course, you can see at this point, because it is a corpse makeup, I'm trying to sink those eyes in, and I'm trying to kind of create those areas where the skin is going to be torn. Again, because I'm not freshly dead, I'm bringing those more browns and greens and yellows in. Those colors are really kind of bring it to that putrid sort of tone. You can mix that with some bruisey, dark reds and blues and things like that, and it really sells the effect. And again, like with any sort of design, it's all about your highlights and shadows. So definitely hit those highlights and shadows, because that will make the difference. And for our next step of the process, we're going to start making our Baldiez sheets. Now, Baldiez is the material that you usually put onto a silicone prosthetic. Usually that's the barrier that's on the outside of your silicone. In this case, obviously there is no silicone, so we're just spraying the Baldiez barrier on a nice, clean surface. In this case, I'm using a glass palette, so that way I can peel that Baldiez up. Notice how I don't have any release on there. I'm just airbrushing it on, I'm giving it a couple coats, get it to where I need it. And then once I have a few coats on there, you can put some powder on there. Basically, if you don't do this and you try to peel that Baldiez sheet, the Baldiez sheets are going to stick to themselves. So make sure you have powder on there to make that stickiness go away. And then you just slowly work that up and you can kind of pull that sheet off of the glass. Now you can see that I haven't used a release for this, so it is taking me a quick second to get this off. You can get it off. Glass is a non-porous surface, so you should be able to peel that up, but it might take a second or two. I guess you could say it's a rather appealing technique. So as you're working your Baldiez sheet up, make sure to take your time. You know, again, you don't have to be overly precious with it if parts of it rip. That's not really that big of a deal since we're going to be doing ripped, torn skin anyway. But that's the thing about making Baldiez sheets, is you try to get it up on one piece so you have the most material you have to work with, and then you can always tear it back later. Now, as you can see, this is kind of the final product. You can see what we're going for. You can see that the Baldiez has got a few holes in it, which is, again, fine. That's what we're going for. But you can see how paper thin and how light it is. And the nice thing is when you glue that onto the skin, it does a really great job of blending off into the skin pretty evenly. And if you get any spots, you can always hit those, a little bit of acetone, and it takes care of that. Now, if you don't want to go through that process of putting Baldiez through your airbrush, there is a second technique you can use. I'm taking Vaseline, rubbing it all over that glass palette, and then essentially I'm just pouring that Baldiez on and brushing it out with a sponge. Again, try to get it as thin as you can. You can create some spots that are a little thicker if you'd like, but essentially you're doing the same thing. You're taking that material, spreading it out nice and thin, or as thin as you can get it, and then you wait for it to dry and peel it up. Now, the nice thing about Baldiez is it doesn't take long for it to dry. It dries relatively quickly, so you don't have to wait long. But once it is, same technique like we did before. Go ahead and get a little powder out, dust it over the top. You can use that brush to lift your Baldiez off the palette. Of course, in this case, because we did release it with Vaseline, so you can see how quickly that comes off the palette. So keep that in mind when deciding to use a release or not. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and put a little derma shield down on the skin. Again, just trying to make sure I have a barrier on my skin to protect it from everything else I'm going to put on top, because we are going to be using some Old Age stipple today. That can get a little sticky and it can take a little bit of time to come off. I'm going to be using Old Age stipple C, WM Creations. Stipple comes in A, B, and C, and the C is for a more extreme effect. I'm using this white sponge torn up in such a way to give a more realistic, kind of broken up texture. If you use a sponge that is just the way it comes from the factory, it's too clean of a surface and it doesn't look natural. I did a video about 3 months ago about Old Age stipple and how you apply that, and essentially the technique that I use. So if you're curious about that technique, I'd go watch that video, because essentially I'm doing the same thing here. I'm applying it in 3 different layers, but of course in this case, because I'm a corpse, I'm kind of just being a little willy-nilly with it. I'm trying to go heavy in a couple little areas. I don't have to finesse the Old Age stipple like I do in an Old Age makeup. And after that's powdered and dried, you can see the difference. You can see the texture that it's adding on my skin versus the side without. That's what we're going for. We're kind of going for that kind of wrinkly sort of breakup. I think that's going to help sell the fact that I've been dead for a while. Now, I'm gluing over my brow. Essentially, this is the same technique that you see in a lot of makeup tutorial videos where people are using glue sticks. Essentially, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm using the glues that we usually have in your kit. In this case, I think I'm using Telesys 8, and I'm putting that on and getting my brows nice and flat, because I'm going to run that wound up in that area, and I want to have a flat texture to work off of. Now, I'm using my first bit of Baldiez right here. Basically, I put a strip of glue down first, and then I just kind of put the Baldiez where I want it. I kind of stick it down. Again, I'm trying not to be too careful with it. I'm trying to make sure that I have that general shape that we established in our design. I'm trying to get it to follow that outline. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm building a wound fringe. I'm building the area of the skin that has gotten torn back. So on one side, I'd like it to be smooth and kind of blend off into my skin so it looks like it's my skin texture coming up to the edge of the wound. But then, of course, on the other side, I want it to look like it's decaying. I want it to look like that part of my skin has been eaten away. So essentially what you do is you lay a strip of glue down and you just put your Baldiez over top. And you can kind of work that Baldiez around to those positions that you need it. Now, the fun thing about this stuff is you can just kind of pull it away where you want. You know, if you've got a spot that looks a little funky, just pluck it. The other nice thing about Baldiez is you can layer the stuff up. So if you have a spot that didn't exactly do what you wanted it to do, again, because we're not trying to be super clean with this, you can basically take some more glue, put it on, and stick that Baldiez right over top, and then tear more of it away. The more that layers up, the wrinkles that you get underneath, it just builds up the dimension that you're going to have in your makeup, and you can kind of create some cool texture with it. As you can see, we're just building up those layers. We're building up those spots where I'd like to have a little bit of dimension. We're building up the parts of the skin where we design those wounds to be. And once I have my Baldiez set, what you're seeing me go through now and do is you're seeing me hit those areas a little bit of acetone. Again, acetone is going to blend off that barrier just like they do in our prosthetics because it's coated in Baldiez. So in this case, if you have a raw sheet of Baldiez on top, you can take just a little bit of acetone on that Q-tip and kind of tap down in those areas that you'd like it to blend off. You can blend it into the skin, or you can go over top of some of the areas that you already have and kind of get those pieces to kind of meld together. Don't be too precious with this either. Go through and figure out those spots where you want things to go away. You're just working it till it looks pretty close to the design that we kind of put into place. And if you see a spot that you'd like to hit it with the acetone. If you want to put a little bit more on, get your glue back out, put another sheet right back on. That's how versatile this stuff is. And just like a silicone prosthetic, once you've blended your edges out, you go back over the whole thing with Procreate cream. In this case, I'm going a little heavier on it because, again, you're going to have that texture in that Procreate cream that's really going to help to kind of create that kind of texturized skin that's going to help sell the fact that we're making a corpse. And you can go over all of your baldies with this stuff. Again, if you want those edges that are flaked up a little bit, I'd be careful around those. But essentially, you can use that to kind of create a more unified look across all of your baldy sheets. And again, like I was saying before, since it is kind of freeform, if you see a little spot that you'd like to kind of punch up a little bit or didn't do exactly what you want, well, great, go ahead and stick that one on. Prosaic cream is glue. So essentially, you don't have to go back into your Telesis. If you don't want to, you can just stick it on with that. And I think that's what I did in this case. It's one of those things, it's a little scary when you get into it, because you could look at my face with all this white stuff all over it and go, all right, that's a little odd. I don't see where this is going. It's one of those things where you kind of have to trust the process. Just go through it. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You see those little spots that are going to irk you, and you just kind of keep pushing. Those are those spots that ask for the brush. You know what I mean? If you see a spot that catches your eye where you're like, ugh, that thing right there, I need to get it. That's how that process works. And that's why I say trust the process. Just keep working through it. After we're done with all that, go ahead and get your powder brush out. Go ahead and set all that prosaic cream so it's not sticky, and then go over all of that with Final Seal. That'll get that white haze away. Now we're ready for paint. Now, very much like at our design, where we went in with that kind of bruisey undertone and that blue undertone for that marbling, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going in with my bruise tone and kind of going over, just being freeform with it, just letting the brush kind of meander and wander its way around my face. And I'll do that with the bruise first, and then you'll see me in a few moments go with the vein tone. And again, it's one of those things that if you see a little spot that goes heavy, get a little alcohol on a Q-tip and you can kind of dab that down and kind of get it to settle into the skin a little bit. The nice thing about this is kind of freeform too, so you can push it as heavier or as light as you'd like it. And I usually like to go over a light pass initially, and then I'll go through and I'll maybe punch a couple little sections, make that section a little darker, make that section a little lighter. So you can really see how light I'm going up in here to get all this stuff. And this is what my palette looks like. You can see that the pigments that I'm using, you can see it's really washy right in here. And so essentially what I'm doing is that's the small amount of pigment, this right here that I'm kind of pulling up. That small amount of pigment is what I'm using. If I need to darken that up a little bit, I can pull from up here, just kind of pull it down, and then add a little bit more of that bruisey color in here. But I'm never going directly from the well over here and then directly onto my face. I'm usually putting it in here and thinning it down a little bit. Because as you can see, as I'm going in, it's really subtle. And that's okay. That's what you're going for. It's this subtlety is what kind of sells it. And then after you get everything down, if there are areas that you need to punch up, well then get in there and punch it up. But, you know, it's always easier to put on than to take away. Got a little too saucy right here. Now for me, the term saucy basically describes an area where the makeup has gotten a little too heavy and it looks like it's coming from too much of one source. In this case, my brush. That looks like the source. So essentially, that's one of those areas that you'd get a little bit of alcohol and kind of feather that down a little bit, just to kind of make it look like it's part of the skin. All right, time for vein tone. And the nice thing about all this veining is, especially when you're going over your bits of bruise, those colors kind of blend together a little bit, and they kind of go darker. So it's these two colors in particular, especially working together to do all this, is really, really effective. And you can see just right in here what a difference that little blue makes. It's like maybe 5 lines right there. And you can already see that it's starting to shift. Now that's one thing to keep in mind as you're going through your makeup. Think about how your colors are going to play with each other. Think about here, blue and your purple. When those two come together, what is that going to do to the skin? So something to keep in mind whenever you're painting any sort of makeup. So I'm just going in with a little bit of alcohol and a couple points, so it should look a little too much for me. I'm just kind of fine-tuning a couple little spots. But I think that's about what we were going for in the design. I'm just going to throw a little natural one on some of these little bits of Baldiez just to get the white to kind of go away. And we're going to slowly kind of keep bringing it back, and we're going to get it all kind of gunky here in a few. But I want to start out with something a little bit more neutral just to get it a little closer to where my skin tone is, so we're not fighting it nearly as much. Some of these areas on the edge I do want to have remain highlighted, and some of these lines I'm going to want to remain highlighted. I might go in and punch them up a little bit, but remember, as you're painting, your highlights and lowlights are key. So think about those areas that are further back in the skin, and think about those areas that are on top. Those areas on top should be a lot lighter. Those areas further back should be a lot darker, especially on that border. Right there where those two colors meet, when you have one layer on top and the other layer in back, and you can even see it on my hand, there's a shadow right there. And that contrast between very light on this side and very dark on this side, our human eye picks that up, and we immediately think that's an edge. That's a delineation. My brain is telling me that the light is hitting this section and not hitting this section. And that's how you can sell that depth in your makeups. Keep that in mind as you're going through. Like I always say, it's always about highlights and shadows. Now essentially what we're doing was just kind of doing that old age trick where we're trying to break these areas up to make it look like the skin's torn. So we do have, some flaky skin bits and some actual bits of, our Baldiez in certain places. But at the other point too, I'm also trying to make it look like there are tiny little bits of holes and stuff in there. So that way it looks like it's a little bit more torn, because that's kind of what we're going for. So I'm just going to kind of sit here and noodle for a little bit and find those areas that look like they're asking for a hole, and then kind of hit those accordingly. Like right down here, it looks like we've got a little something we could work with. Like maybe right in here. Yeah, that's gross. That's what you're going for. Yeah, that's gross. Yeah, and that's the trick with this stuff too, is it's about layering it up. It's about getting a couple little bits of pieces of things on there just to kind of really sell the point that, it's this. It's the skin is losing its integrity. It's breaking down. So now that we've got those areas in there, I'm going to go in here and start kind of darkening this in a little bit more. I'm going to go in with the Skin Illustrator Grunge palette. I'm going to go in with my dark brun. And that dark brun, I'm hoping, is going to kind of darken things in and kind of muddy things down just a little bit. You don't want things to get too muddy, of course, but getting it down a little bit more, I think, is probably what we need. Kind of darkening in all this a little bit. I'm actually going to put a little bit of green in there too. There's a color in the grunge palette called Grass Stains, and it's this kind of yellowy, greeny, dark kind of color. And I think that'll kind of help with some of this to kind of sell the decay aspect of it. Because right now I've got a lot of red that's going on. Obviously the bruise is red. Obviously there's some aged blood mixed with some brown that I kind of put in here just to kind of differentiate that a little bit. Of course, anything red is going to give something life. We're going to try to take that life away. So you're going to find me going in with the cooler tones in my palettes here. So we're going to start with a little bit of this green and kind of see where that gets us. Like I said earlier in the video, make sure that your colors are playing well with each other. In this case, because I started going in with that red, I'm going in with that green to kind of neutralize that a little bit. And that takes it into that brown territory, which is perfect for a corpse, because a corpse is not going to be overly red when you think about it. Red indicates that there's some life still there. Of course, at this point, we want to take that red and shift it into a brown territory. So that green is going to help with that. Also, that green is going to help show the decay on the skin. And see, as you're doing this, you'll start to see little shapes like this. And those shapes will kind of come up naturally with where you're putting your brush, especially if you're trying to put your brush in a bunch of different areas. Shapes like this will start popping up. You'll get little shapes like this start popping up. And you know, like this right here, there's no Baldiez. There's no nothing right there. That's just the skin. So if you can start recognizing little things like that in your design, then get in here and kind of put a little darkness around the edge. Pop that a little bit. Now it looks like this is raised and that's further down because you're playing with your shadows and your highlights. That's how all this stuff works. If you really get in here and you start playing with your shadows and highlights and you start punching areas and taking other areas down, then all of a sudden you've got a makeup that totally looks believable, even if it's totally flat. That's kind of how that works. It's these little paint tricks like this. Now, granted, if you turn into the light or something, oh, I didn't ever even turn this light on. Man, I am slacking. Well, case in point. So that light, perfect for this. You can see it here. Of course, as I turn, you see those reflections. That anatomy is not showing up in the light. And that's where when you're on set and you see something like that on camera, that's where a paint job starts to fall away when you have something like that happen. But as you can see with these little bits, because this is raised off the skin, the light gets broken up a little bit by that. And all of a sudden, if you're the viewer at home and you see that, or if you're in the movie theater and see that, then you're like, oh God, there's something going on with the skin. Same thing with down here. And then as I turn the other way, you can see the same thing happening over here because those bits of Baldiez are raised off of the skin. And then, of course, you know, because we have old age stipple underneath, all of this stuff is really chunky. So all of that catches in the light too. So that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to make stuff like that happen and then putting a little paint in there to really punch it. It's fun. It's really fun. So now, as I'm going through this, I know I'm kind of adding some green, I'm kind of darkening it and kind of mucking it up a little bit. One thing that I am going to have to do, and the more I'm getting into this, the more I'm realizing it's highlighted and it's starting to work. It's still too yellow. It's still too white. It's still too like ping. So we're going to have to take that down and bring that down into the skin a little bit more. I will probably bring in some of this red and brown that's under in here, and then very, very lightly go over top of this to try to make it look washy. So all of a sudden it looks like those colors are coming through from the underside as opposed to me just putting them on top. Even though that's what I'm doing. Getting excited, I'm hitting my mic over here. Even though that's what I'm doing, I want it to look like it's coming through the skin. So you can see I'm kind of doing the same thing here. I'm playing with that little bit of a highlight there and that little bit of a shadow just to punch that a little bit. Now I stand back just a hair and now it looks like there's another little bit of musculature or something like that underneath. See how much that helped? I mean, compare this and how bright it was before to this or this. You can really start to see how it's starting to settle into the skin. Alright, now we're working with something. It's kind of gross. Yeah. So now I have this Makeup Forever flash color case, and essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with probably this blue, might mix in a little red or green or brown or something like that. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go in here and I'm going to darken in under this eye. I'm going to bring the creams in up in here just because I don't want to get too close to my eyes with the alcohol paints. You can, but because I'm still trying to open my eye while I do this paint job, I can't just have it be closed. I have no problem getting alcohol paints up in here with my eyes closed, but with them open, it's an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little of this in there. I think I'm going to start with a little bruisey color up in here and then kind of get into that kind of dark red kind of down in here. And then, yeah, see where that kind of takes us. I mix the blue and red, which of course makes purple. That's not a bad purple color. Looks pretty good. So we're going to give that a shot. It's a little dark, so let's get in there and smudge it. So what I'm doing on my palette down here is I'm kind of mixing up some red and some brown right here. I've got my green and brown, kind of trying to make that kind of grass stainy color from the grunge palette. You know, just trying to mix these colors up a little bit, make them a little bit more, make these match some of these other colors that I'm using. I had a makeup artist tell me once, don't be afraid of the eyes, get in there. You don't want to have a makeup that looks like you've got raccoon eyes. Meaning that you've put stuff all over the face except for right here and right here, and it looks like they're a raccoon. So I find myself trying to go in and really hit those areas because I totally agree. I know exactly what he's talking about. And no, you don't want raccoon eyes. Avoid raccoon eyes. Raccoon eyes look stupid. That's not realistic. Yeah, that works. Now, a lot of these paints, especially like the Makeup Forever ones that I'm putting on right now, a lot of those highly pigmented, kind of cream-based makeups, a lot of those, I have a little bit of 244 that I just put on this IT. I can get in here just a little bit, and I can kind of take that down, because that was kind of bugging me. It was too much like a... There we go. I think that did it. Now you have to be careful when you're doing this. If you go in here a lot, because this is technically a makeup remover, if I try to go over this with something, it might not necessarily stick. Could create an issue, but I'm gonna go with that for now and hope that it doesn't. So 244 is technically a silicone fluid, and you can use it as a base for mixing pigment sometimes, but you can also use it as a makeup remover. But in this case, you can thin down some of those pigments. So again, just be really careful. Know that a lot of your acrylic-based stuff might not stick to your skin if there's a layer of 244 on there. So now I'm going to try to highlight a couple spots. Now I don't want to, normally I would highlight with like a rice paper and I would go through, and I still might do that for some of these really bright lines. But I do want to kind of do some generalized highlights, like kind of maybe punch these areas up, and I don't want to go totally bright like a rice paper. So I think I might do, because we're kind of in a warmer hue right now, I might go in with the Lao 1, which is a little bit warmer, and see if I can kind of punch in here. Now we're going in with those rice paper lines. So what do I keep saying? Highlights and shadows, highlights and shadows, highlights and shadows. Those little rice paper lines really help to kind of punch those areas, especially if you have that really light line, gets that really dark area. Again, you're playing with the depth. You're trying to fake it a little bit. And those areas really help to kind of make things pop on your makeup. Now, this is one of those things that you could sit and noodle forever. You could sit in here and paint all these little bits on here. But, you know, at the end of the day, you don't have all day. So, you know, it's that trying to find those areas that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. That's really what you're trying to do. Trying to hit those areas that's going to have the most impact. And that's kind of the general idea with what you do with this stuff. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. You kind of get into those areas where you're like, oh, that's a fun little bit of anatomy that I can noodle. And then you forget what you're talking about. It's funny, as I do a makeup like this, you're noticing that I'm kind of jumping around kind of all over the place, different colors, different areas. I don't have ADHD, but I have a whole bunch of family members who do. So this is one of those things that I imagine what it's like, where you just see something and you're like, I'm going to go to that now. Oh, I'm going to go to that now. That's kind of what it feels like a little bit as you're doing this. You know, you're seeing little areas that are catching your eye and you're like, oh, I should hit that. And just to kind of help why I'm going to VFX this later. You can see how much of a difference that red along the waterline makes. This is super helpful. This is just a Ben Nye pencil, but you can get right in here on this. Just to punch that color. All right, so I think for the most part, I think we're pretty close to where I want to be with this. I don't feel I'm pale enough, so I'm going to go ahead and get the airbrush out real quick, and I'm going to try to do an even coat over all of this, just to kind of pale it out, to get me a little closer to that kind of decayed, dead look, you know, person that we photoshopped. After we do that, I'm going to seal it, and then I'm going to just kind of muck up my hair a little bit, because, you know, not that my hair is perfect right now, which it's not, but I'm going to mat it down and kind of just really make it gross, and I think that'll really help kind of sell the effect too. So I'm going to get the airbrush out, we'll get that going, spray that all over, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so first things first, I'm actually going in with my cool tone first. I want to kind of cool everything down, everything feels a little warm, and after I do that, I'm going to go over with my rice paper next, but we'll get it started with that, and see where that takes us. Yeah, that's getting there, bit by bit. Alright, I think I'm going to do a little rice paper on this. Alright, for this rice paper coat pass, I'm just going to spatter it everywhere. So I'm going to do a little spatter test down here on my neck, make sure that looks okay, and then we're going to take that over top. I look like somebody who's had a bad day. And lastly here, we're going to seal this whole thing with some Pro Seal. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of gross. Cool. So, we're going to do, let's mess up the hair. Now I have this tub of sexy hairstyle. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub this in and just kind of muck up my hair, make it look gross. That's kind of the idea. Figured muck it down so it kind of has that look that decaying with the rest of the body. So one of the reasons I'm doing this too is, if it's something that can be done at a kit, hey, we're not too far away from Halloween. So if you want to be a dead guy for Halloween or something like that, this is generally speaking, a pretty easy way to get there. If you want to take a little bit of time to noodle some stuff all over your face and kind of paint it down a little bit, it's really not a bad way to go. And it kind of shows what you can get away with just materials that you have in your kit. You don't have to have a ton of crazy prosthetics to get something that's going to kind of pop off of the face a little bit. So there are options there, And for the very last step, the last thing to kind of take this over the edge, a little personal lubricant. I know. But this stuff is great for just getting a little bit of gunk, a little bit of, we're going to get it in here and just kind of make things look like it's oozing a little bit. So I just got a sponge out. We're just going to get in there and make it all nice and wet. And then most of the time you think of a dead body, and you think of a dead body being dry. You think of a dead body being, flaky, fart and dust, if you will. But I always kind of like, you can take these makeups, and if somebody's expecting that, but you go with something that's a little wet, now we're starting to get really gross. Now you feel like there's active decay happening. Now it's looking gross. Let's see if we can up my light a little bit and see if we can catch a little bit more of those reflections. And again, if you concentrate, just use a little logic, concentrate this on those decaying areas that we've kind of put in. Yeah, then it starts to get pretty nasty, especially when you catch it in the glare. Gross. All right, let's see if we can do a little dramatic lighting for effect. So there you have it. There's an out-of-kit corpse makeup, all in a nutshell for you. Of course, the eyes, they're VFX'd. I don't mess with the eyes. I'm not a lens tech, and I don't want to screw eyes up. So that's why you have a lens tech there, because they can protect the eyes, they take care of them, they take care of the lenses, they do all of that, and they're very, very, very good at their job. You don't want to be screwing up somebody's eyes. Don't even mess with it. It's one thing if you mess up yours, something entirely different if you mess up somebody else's, especially in actors. Don't do it. You put your job in jeopardy at that point. You put somebody's eyes in jeopardy. It should not happen. So other than that, from an out-of-kit point of view, definitely check out the link in my bio. All of the materials that I've used here today, I've got listed out. So if you want to tackle something like this, give it a shot. Or if you want to add a couple things to your kit that you don't happen to have in there, definitely check out that link. Pick up a couple of those things to get you going. In the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Have you ever tackled an out-of-kit makeup before? Have you ever tried a corpse makeup? Have you ever had one of those go really well or really poorly? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. And of course, as always, if you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you can get updated on videos as soon as they drop. And in the meantime, with Halloween a couple days away, Have fun out there. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. And as always, keep making cool stuff.